Friends, if you're in the mood for a movie that will make you laugh, make you think, and leave you with a warm and fuzzy feeling, then you've got to check out Shallow Hal, the 2001 comedy that's still winning hearts even today. And hey, if this is your first time visiting our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications, because we bring you fun, detailed, and exciting videos on movies you love, or are about to fall in love with. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into Shallow Hal, a film that isn't just about laughs but also carries a surprising message underneath all the humor. We'll break down everything you need to know about this movie. What is it about? Who's in it? Where can you watch it right now? And what made this early 2000s film such a memorable piece of pop culture? You'll get all the answers in this video, so stick around till the end. We'll start by talking about the plot and storyline of Shallow Hal. What seems like a simple romantic comedy at first glance actually takes a pretty unique turn. It follows the story of Hal, a man who only judges people based on their appearance, until a twist of fate changes how he sees the world forever. The film has its funny moments, awkward moments, and surprisingly heartfelt moments that all come together to create a feel-good story with a strong message about inner beauty. We'll also tell you exactly where you can watch this movie right now, whether it's streaming on a popular OTT platform or available on any satellite TV channel. So if you've been wondering where to find Shallow Hal, we've got you covered. No more searching around the internet. We'll give you the complete viewing info in this video. Next, we'll jump into the technical side of things. How was Shallow Hal made? Who directed it? Who wrote it? And what kind of creative decisions shaped its look, feel, and tone? We'll take a closer look at the directors. Yes, there are two of them. And how their unique comedic style helped bring this quirky story to life. We'll also explore the music in the film, how the soundtrack adds to the emotion and fun, and how the cinematography and editing contributed to the storytelling. From pre-production to filming, and then all the way through post-production, we'll give you a behind-the-scenes peek at how it all came together. And of course, we'll talk about the money. How much this movie cost to make, how it performed at the box office, and whether it was considered a hit at the time. You might be surprised by how audiences and critics reacted to this one. It stirred up some interesting conversations back in the day. We're also going to break down the cast of the film. Who played who? How did they prepare for their roles? How was the chemistry between the lead actors? We'll take a look at the performances of Jack Black as Hal and Gwyneth Paltrow as Rosemary, and how they brought humor and heart to their characters. We'll also talk about some of the supporting roles and how each character added something special to the story. But that's not all. We'll throw in some fun facts and lesser-known trivia about the movie. Did you know some of the makeup and visual effects used in this movie took hours to create? Or that certain scenes were shot with body doubles to keep the twist believable? We'll share these little gems and more to give you a richer appreciation of the movie. Lastly, I'll give you a light, spoiler-free review of the film. My take on what worked, what could have been better, and why Shallow Hal still has a loyal fan base all these years later. Whether you're watching it for the first time or revisiting it after a long break, this film has something for everyone. So friends, I invite you to stay with me until the end of this video, because there's so much to discover about Shallow Hal. We'll laugh, we'll learn, and we'll enjoy the journey together. So grab your snacks, get comfortable, and let's get started with everything you need to know about the movie Shallow Hal. Alright friends, buckle up, because the story of Shallow Hal is a roller coaster ride of comedy, confusion, love, and life lessons, all wrapped up in a wacky premise that somehow manages to be both ridiculous and meaningful at the same time. This movie doesn't just serve you laughs. It sneaks in a big warm hug of emotion when you least expect it. We start off with Hal Larson, your classic nice but clueless guy. He's got a decent job, a best friend who's just as shallow as he is, and a never-ending list of what he thinks makes someone dateable. His whole romantic life is based on appearances. He's obsessed with outer beauty, from perfect hair to runway-ready looks. Hal doesn't just have preferences. He has a checklist. And if someone doesn't meet his superficial standards, he's not interested. This guy treats relationships like shopping for a car. He wants the flashiest model with zero flaws. But here's the thing, despite all his pickiness, Hal isn't exactly a prize himself, and that's part of the comedy. He's not cruel, he's not mean-spirited, he's just hopelessly misguided. Now here's where the movie takes its wild turn. One random day, Hal finds himself stuck in an elevator with none other than motivational speaker Tony Robbins. What starts as small talk turns into a bizarre therapy session. Hal, desperate to understand why he's unlucky in love, opens up to Tony. And Tony, with his guru vibes and booming voice, decides Hal needs a little mental tune-up. Boom! He hypnotizes him right there in the elevator. No big explanation, no flashy special effects. Just a quick suggestion that flips Hal's entire world upside down. From that moment on, Hal can no longer see people's outer appearances as they are. Instead, he sees their inner beauty reflected on the outside. Suddenly, kindness becomes physical beauty. Confidence becomes attractiveness. Empathy becomes radiance. And Hal doesn't even realize what's happened. He just thinks the world is suddenly full of gorgeous people. He walks around like he's won the romantic lottery. He starts flirting with women he never would have looked at twice before. He doesn't see weight, wrinkles or scars. He sees sparkle, style and smiles. Enter Rosemary. She's sweet, smart, funny, and deeply kind. And to Hal, she's absolutely stunning. She looks like a supermodel in his eyes. But to the rest of the world, Rosemary is plus-sized and often judged for it. She's used to people treating her with indifference or cruelty. But Hal? He treats her like a queen. He's smitten. He brings her flowers. He laughs at her jokes. He's in deep and fast. Of course, this new Hal doesn't go unnoticed. His best friend Mauricio is totally confused, and not just confused, but genuinely disturbed. Mauricio is the kind of guy who's all about looks too, and he doesn't understand what's going on with his buddy. He sees Hal dating someone who, by his shallow standards, doesn't fit the mold. Mauricio keeps waiting for Hal to wake up from whatever dream he's in. But the more Hal falls for Rosemary, the more determined Mauricio becomes to figure out what's really going on. Meanwhile, Hal is on cloud 9. He and Rosemary go on adorable dates, he meets her family, and everything seems perfect, except for the moments when reality doesn't quite match up. Chairs break. Waiters stare. People whisper. But Hal brushes it all off, totally unaware that he's the only one seeing Rosemary in this magical light. And it's those moments, the ones where Hal doesn't notice the obvious, that are both funny and touching. We laugh because it's ridiculous, but we also feel for Rosemary, who's constantly treated differently by everyone except Hal. But every spell eventually breaks. Mauricio, frustrated and jealous, finally tracks down Tony Robbins and begs him to undo whatever voodoo he did to Hal. And well, Tony does. Just like that. Snap. Hal's enchanted vision disappears, and suddenly, everything looks different. When he sees Rosemary again, he's confused. He doesn't recognize her. He even walks past her. And that moment hits hard, not just for Hal, but for the audience too. It's a gut punch of realization. Hal wasn't pretending to love her. He really did. But now, without the hypnosis, his old instincts start creeping back in. This is where the emotional conflict explodes. Hal has to make a choice. Was he really in love with Rosemary for who she was? Or was it all some illusion created by Tony's hypnotic trick? It's no longer about what Hal sees. It's about what he feels. He starts retracing his steps, thinking back to all the moments they shared, and realizing how happy he was when he stopped obsessing over appearances. The magic might be gone, but the feelings aren't. There's a beautiful and messy turning point where Hal goes back to find Rosemary. Not because he sees her differently, but because he feels differently about himself. He's grown. He's changed. And he wants her to know that what they had was real. The chase, the awkward apologies, the vulnerable moments, it all builds up to one big, heartfelt reunion. Now, let's talk structure. Yes, on the surface, this story follows a pretty standard romantic comedy formula. Guy meets girl, guy messes up, guy wins her back. But what makes Shallow Hal so fun and unique is the way it plays with perception. It's not just about external beauty or some fairy tale romance. It flips the classic love story inside out and holds up a mirror to society, asking us to reconsider how we define attraction. It's like a fairy tale told through the lens of self-help psychology and absurd comedy. And that weird combo? It works. The key turning points aren't just plot twists, they're emotional revelations. Hal realizing he doesn't recognize Rosemary is huge. But so is the moment when he chooses her, fully aware of who she is and without any mental shortcuts. That's the climax. Not a big speech or dramatic kiss, but a quiet decision to love someone for who they are, not what they look like. And through it all, we're laughing. At the restaurant scenes. At the pool moments. At Hal's completely ridiculous confusion. But underneath the comedy, there's something surprisingly real. That's the charm of Shallow Hal. It makes you laugh while gently tugging at your heart, and by the time it's over, you're left with more than just a good time. You're left thinking about how you see the world. So yeah, the story may seem like a simple rom-com on the surface, but it's got layers. Just like people. Just like Hal had to learn. And that's what makes the journey from the first scene to the last so ridiculously entertaining. Absolutely. Here's an even more detailed, fully expanded version of the character development section for Shallow Hal, written in an entertaining, immersive, and engaging storytelling style. Perfect for keeping your audience hooked from start to finish. 3. Character development ***. Let's dive deep into the delightful chaos of Shallow Hal and take a closer look at the characters that make this oddball story come to life. This isn't just a film with a funny gimmick. It's a quirky, heartfelt journey led by characters who stumble their way toward growth, revelation, and, believe it or not, a better version of themselves. And trust me, it's a blast watching them get there. First, we've got our leading man, Hal Larson. Oh Hal. This guy is a walking, talking disaster of shallow dating standards. He's not evil, not even mean-spirited. He's more like a clueless puppy who thinks he's smooth. At the beginning of the film, Hal is stuck in a cycle of judging women solely by their looks. If you don't resemble a Victoria's Secret model or some movie star on a magazine cover, Hal doesn't even blink. He's the kind of guy who's waiting for a fairy tale romance, but only if the princess comes with flawless skin, perfect curves, and no emotional complexity. But here's the thing about Hal. He's not completely irredeemable. Underneath all that shallowness is a guy who's just never been shown another way. And that's where the story kicks in. Once Tony Robbins works his magic and Hal starts seeing people based on their inner beauty, something incredible happens. He changes without realizing it. At first, Hal thinks he's suddenly found a new wave of ridiculously attractive people all over the city. He's not aware that the world hasn't changed. He has. He's interacting with people he would have ignored a week earlier, and it's all happening so naturally, you can practically see his soul doing a double take. The transformation isn't dramatic or preachy. It's slow, comedic, and packed with those little aha moments that sneak up on him and us. By the time Hal meets Rosemary, it's game over. This is where the real magic starts. In Hal's eyes, Rosemary is jaw-droppingly gorgeous. But what he's really seeing is her kindness, her humor, her generosity, her heart. And here's the beauty of it. He falls in love with her without ever questioning what she looks like to anyone else. He loves her confidence. He adores how she laughs at her own jokes. He's mesmerized when she dances, moved when she volunteers at the hospital, and genuinely devastated when she doubts his feelings. Hal's arc is about more than just changing how he sees others. It's about changing how he sees himself. By the end of the movie, he's no longer chasing trophy girlfriends or obsessing over appearances. He's chasing meaning, connection, and depth. And it all unfolds in a way that feels funny, natural, and earned. Now let's talk about Rosemary, the beating heart of this movie. She could have easily been written as a one-dimensional lesson-teaching love interest. But no, she's so much more than that. Rosemary is confident, smart, hilarious, and emotionally mature. She's spent her whole life being underestimated because of her size, but she doesn't let bitterness define her. She lives fully, with compassion and strength, and she challenges Hal, not by demanding change, but by deserving it. She doesn't believe Hal's intentions at first. Who would? She's used to judgment, not admiration. But Hal's sincerity throws her off. She starts to open up. And through their growing bond, we get to see a woman who has built armor around her heart finally letting herself be vulnerable. One of the most powerful moments in her character arc is when she discovers that Hal was seeing a different version of her all along. It's painful. Not because she's ashamed of how she looks, but because she believes she wasn't loved for who she really is. Her heartbreak is raw and honest. But even then, she holds her head high. She refuses to be pitted or tokenized. Her growth isn't about changing for Hal. It's about staying true to herself and demanding authenticity from others. And that's character strength. And then there's Mauricio, Hal's best friend and unofficial wingman, the comic relief with a hidden emotional core. Mauricio is Hal times 10 when it comes to judging people based on looks. He's quick with the one-liners, fast with the insults, and absolutely allergic to personal growth, at first. He sees Hal's new behavior and is completely rattled. From Mauricio's perspective, his buddy has gone off the deep end, dating women he wouldn't normally look at, ignoring hot girls, and turning down shallow hookups. Mauricio is so freaked out by Hal's new outlook that he practically makes it his mission to rescue him from this weird inner beauty spell. But then, something amazing happens. Mauricio, the shallowest of them all, starts to crack. Not with a big speech or dramatic moment, but with something hilariously simple. His insecurity about his tailbone. He reveals that he's been carrying around a deep fear of judgment himself, and suddenly, his entire attitude starts to make sense. He's afraid. All his shallow posturing is just a cover for his own shame. And that's where Mauricio becomes more than just the funny sidekick. He becomes a mirror. Hal's evolution forces Mauricio to see himself clearly. Maybe for the first time. Even Tony Robbins, who shows up for just a couple of key scenes, plays a critical role in character development. He doesn't stick around to babysit Hal through his journey. He just gives him the tools and walks away. Robbins is like the wise old wizard who casts a spell and lets the hero figure the rest out. His presence bookends Hal's transformation, reminding us that real change isn't magic, it's choice. Hal was never forced to love Rosemary. He chose to. Over and over. And that's the point. The relationships between the characters are what drive the entire movie forward. Hal and Rosemary's romance is built on real emotional connection, not fantasy. Hal and Mauricio's friendship is tested, stretched, and eventually deepened. Even the strangers Hal meets along the way, women he flirts with, people he compliments, serve as tiny checkpoints in his journey from surface level to soul level. Each interaction chips away at the old Hal and makes room for the new one. What's beautiful about Shallow Hal is that none of the characters are perfect. They're flawed, funny, and frustrating, but they're all trying in their own messy ways to understand the world and their place in it. Their arcs don't just shape the story, they are the story. Every laugh comes from a place of truth. Every awkward moment is a stepping stone to self-awareness. And by the end, we're not just watching a movie about how people look, we're watching a story about how people grow. So yes, the characters in Shallow Hal are layered. They're evolving. They're full of contradictions and charm and emotional depth. And watching them stumble, fall, and stand up again is what makes the whole film so entertaining and sneakily profound. Now let's get into the real heart of the movie. The performances. Because Shallow Hal might start with a wild premise, but it only works because the cast dives in headfirst, no hesitation, no holding back. It's like watching a group of actors walking a tightrope between silly and sincere, and somehow, they nail it. This isn't one of those movies where people just read their lines and go home. No, these performances are dialed in. Everyone from the leads to the side characters pours genuine energy into their roles, turning what could have been a one-joke comedy into a surprisingly warm, sometimes even moving, character-driven story. Let's start with the man in the middle of it all. Jack Black as Hal Larson. What a perfect casting choice. Jack Black brings that signature mix of over-the-top physical comedy and surprising emotional subtlety that only he can pull off. At the beginning, he's all about swagger. Hal struts around like he's the king of cool, rating women like he's a judge on some imaginary hotness Olympics. But here's the thing. Jack Black plays Hal with this childlike innocence. He's not a mean guy, just incredibly misguided, and that's important because it makes his journey believable. We laugh at his ridiculous standards, but we also sense there's room for growth. And then something amazing happens. Jack Black shifts gears. Once Hal gets hypnotized, Black transforms. But not in a flashy, dramatic way. It's subtle. His expressions soften, his eyes light up differently, he listens more, and he starts moving through the world with a kind of clueless charm that's actually kind of adorable. He gives Hal this open-hearted vulnerability that sneaks up on you. One minute he's delivering a hilarious one-liner, and the next he's staring at Rosemary with pure affection that feels real. And that's the magic of Jack Black here. He makes you believe that this guy could fall in love with someone's soul, even if he thinks it's about her looks. It's the most heartfelt version of a comedy performance. He's funny, but never mocking. Big, but never cartoonish. Jack Black doesn't just carry the movie. He lifts it. Now let's talk about Gwyneth Paltrow, who brings something incredibly grounded and honest to her role as Rosemary. This isn't an easy character to play. Rosemary has to be the emotional anchor in a movie that constantly threatens to spiral into full-on absurdity. But Gwyneth doesn't just hold her own. She brings quiet depth to every scene. She plays Rosemary as confident, intelligent, compassionate, and above all, real. Whether she's teasing Hal, dancing like nobody's watching, or volunteering with sick kids, she radiates this natural kindness that makes it easy to see why Hal would fall for her, even without the visual filter. The way Paltrow handles the emotional moments is just as powerful. There's a moment where Rosemary starts to believe Hal's interest might be a cruel joke, and the way she pulls back, not dramatically, but with a tired sort of disappointment, hits hard. It's not a big speech. It's the look in her eyes, the shift in her tone, the way she carries herself with both vulnerability and pride. And when she finally confronts Hal after discovering the truth, she doesn't explode. She doesn't beg. She simply demands honesty. It's a beautifully restrained performance that shows exactly how much strength this character has. Gwyneth Paltrow manages to bring weight to a movie where the premise could easily overshadow the people. She gives Rosemary a soul. And that soul is the film's heartbeat. Now, enter Jason Alexander as Mauricio, Hal's blunt, brutally shallow best friend. If Hal is on a journey of enlightenment, Mauricio is the guy clinging to the shallow end of the pool with both hands. He's loud, sarcastic, and obsessed with appearances. But here's where Jason Alexander's genius comes in. He doesn't just make Mauricio funny, he makes him pathetic, in the most entertaining way possible. He turns Mauricio into a full-blown comic archetype. The guy who mocks others because deep down, he's afraid of being judged himself. And boy, does Alexander go for it. His timing is razor-sharp. His facial expressions are like a masterclass in exaggerated comedy. He delivers lines with that perfect, "I'm better than you" energy that's so absurd, you can't help but laugh. But then as the story unfolds, he starts to unravel. We find out about the tail thing. Yes, he literally has a hidden tail, and suddenly, all of his behavior makes sense. He's terrified of being seen for who he really is. And just like that, Alexander flips the script. He doesn't beg for sympathy, but he lets us see the cracks. Underneath all the attitude is a guy who's just as insecure and lonely as anyone else. That's a nuanced performance hidden inside a comedy sidekick, and it gives Mauricio unexpected emotional punch. And let's not overlook the supporting cast, who add texture and flavor to every corner of this movie. Joe Vittorelli, playing Rosemary's father, is all heart. He doesn't get a ton of screen time, but every moment he's on screen adds warmth and weight. You immediately get the sense that this is a man who raised his daughter right, with love, dignity, and resilience. When he interacts with Hal, there's this protective but respectful vibe that adds layers to their dynamic. He doesn't need a speech. His presence says everything. Then there's the endless stream of characters that Hal interacts with after his perspective shift. The women he flirts with, the waitresses he compliments, the people he talks to in passing. Every single actor brings an authenticity to their role. It's not just about being seen as beautiful in Hal's eyes. The actors portray confidence, intelligence, wit, traits that reinforce what the movie is trying to say without ever making it feel preachy. These aren't just background extras. They're part of the world building. They show how Hal's transformation is changing more than just his dating habits. It's changing how he treats everyone. And finally, Tony Robbins. Yep, the real-life motivational powerhouse himself. He's not here for long, but when he shows up, he brings this mystical guru-like energy that actually works in the world of Shallow Hal. Robbins doesn't play it like a gimmick. He treats the hypnosis scene with sincerity, like he knows he's about to unlock something deeper in Hal. It's weirdly convincing. He's not acting in the traditional sense, he's just being Tony Robbins, but somehow, it's perfect. His role is small, but it kickstarts everything. So yes, the performances in Shallow Hal go beyond expectations. They take a high-concept comedy and ground it in genuine human emotion. Everyone from Jack Black to Gwyneth Paltrow to Jason Alexander and the entire supporting ensemble shows up ready to deliver real character work. They commit. They dig deep. They make you laugh, but they also make you think. And that's what elevates the film. These actors turn what could have been a simple body swap style gimmick into a funny, sweet, and oddly profound experience that actually sticks with you after the credits roll. Alright, buckle up because the direction in Shallow Hal is a fascinating ride that blends outright silliness with surprisingly tender storytelling. And the credit for that goes squarely to the Farrelly brothers, Peter and Bobby. These guys have a reputation for pushing comedy into the realm of outrageousness, but with Shallow Hal, they managed to take something as quirky and risky as a man hypnotized to see inner beauty, and turn it into a movie that feels both hilarious and heartfelt, which is no easy feat. Their directorial choices shape every moment. Every laugh, every sigh, every awkward glance, giving the film its one-of-a-kind tone that's part broad comedy, part romantic fairy tale, and all fun. First off, the tone they set is crucial because this movie could have easily veered into cringe or preachy territory. But the Farrellys have this rare knack for blending crude humor with sweetness, and they balance it like expert tightrope walkers. You never feel like the movie is laughing at the characters, even when it's going for the gross out or the goofy gag. Instead, the humor feels warm, like it's laughing with them. This is a key reason the film's emotional moments land so well, because the directors don't dismiss the feelings, even as they serve up the jokes. The tone dances between outrageous comedy and genuine affection, making the story feel refreshingly human despite its absurd premise. The pacing is another masterstroke in the Farrelly playbook. They keep the movie moving with a brisk, energetic rhythm that never lets the audience get bored but also doesn't rush through the emotional beats. The early scenes are snappy, introducing us to Hal's shallow world with quick jokes and fast dialogue. Then when the hypnosis kicks in, the film doesn't just flip a switch and turn romantic. Instead, the pace shifts subtly to let us settle into Hal's new perspective, allowing for quieter moments where the humor isn't just about punchlines but about seeing the world, and people, through fresh eyes. The Farrellys know when to speed up for laughs and when to slow down for feeling, and that ebb and flow gives the story a satisfying emotional arc without ever losing its comedic spark. Visually, the film may not be flashy, but the Farrellys make smart stylistic choices that perfectly serve the story. The biggest trick, of course, is how the film shows us what Hal sees versus what's really there. They don't go overboard with CGI or confusing special effects. Instead, the beauty filter is done simply through casting and framing. When Hal looks at someone beautiful, we see an attractive actor, and when the illusion drops, we see the real version. This choice is brilliant in its simplicity. It's clear, funny, and instantly communicates the movie's core message without a single awkward explanation. It's a perfect example of visual storytelling done right, letting the audience experience Hal's perspective firsthand while still keeping the message accessible and light-hearted. Then there's the way the Farrellys treat the set pieces and locations. Everything feels slightly heightened but grounded. The gym scenes, for example, are classic Farrelly territory. Ridiculous workout routines, over-the-top banter, and physical comedy that never gets old. They use everyday settings, a dance club, a restaurant, a boat ride, to create moments that feel both familiar and surreal because the character's behavior turns ordinary into extraordinary. This choice keeps the world relatable and the humor organic. The film never feels like it's trying too hard. Instead, it's like a playful snapshot of life where things just happen to be a little zanier than usual. A standout element of their direction is the way they handle emotional moments. The Farrellys don't sabotage the serious scenes with jokes, which is impressive considering their comedic style. When Rosemary expresses doubt, or when Hal confronts the truth about his hypnotic vision, the pacing slows, the camera lingers, and the music softens. It's as if the directors step back and say, "This is important, let the audience feel this." These scenes have a sincerity that sneaks up on you, especially after all the humor. They don't feel out of place because the groundwork has been laid by the cast and the tone. The Farrellys show respect for these moments, and in return, the audience responds emotionally. It's a delicate balance to maintain, and they pull it off by trusting the story and the viewers. The Farrelly brothers also excel at crafting memorable supporting characters, and their direction lets these side roles shine without stealing the spotlight. Mauricio's wild antics, Rosemary's dad's quiet strength, and the eccentric minor characters all get just enough screen time and quirky detail to feel real and fun. The directors give these characters vivid personalities and allow the actors space to play. Whether it's Mauricio's tail joke or the bizarre club scenes, these moments add layers of comedy and heart. The world feels full and lived in, not just a backdrop for the leads. One fun tidbit about the direction is how they handle humor that could easily be offensive, given the subject matter. Instead of mocking people or using cheap shots, the Farrellys direct the film in a way that punches up, not down. The jokes target shallow attitudes and societal obsessions with looks, not the people themselves. This approach helps the movie maintain a positive message while still delivering laughs. It's a fine line, and their direction navigates it with care and smarts. Lastly, the Farrellys' trust in their cast and story shines through in how they let performances breathe. They don't rush scenes or pile on effects to distract from the emotional beats. Instead, they keep things simple. Camera angles that focus on faces, scenes that let dialogue and expression carry the weight, and moments that linger just enough to let you connect. It's direction that feels confident and respectful of its material, even while it's cracking jokes left and right. In the end, the Farrelly brothers' direction is like the perfect cocktail. Equal parts silly and sincere, with a splash of heart and a twist of outrageousness. They guide Shallow Hal through a comedic maze without losing sight of the emotional core, making sure the movie never feels like a one-note joke but a layered story about seeing beyond the surface. It's a movie that's fun to watch, surprisingly thoughtful, and totally unapologetic about its goofy roots. All thanks to a directing style that knows when to laugh loud and when to whisper something real. When you first watch Shallow Hal, you might not immediately notice how thoughtfully the cinematography shapes the entire experience. The camera work in this film is like the quiet, clever sidekick that knows exactly how to support the story's unique blend of comedy and heart. It doesn't scream for attention with flashy visual gimmicks or complicated camera tricks. Instead, it works behind the scenes, carefully crafting how we perceive the world, Hal's world, and how we emotionally connect to the characters and their journeys. Let's start with the fundamental visual premise of the movie. Hal sees people's inner beauty as their outward appearance thanks to hypnosis. This presents a tricky challenge. How do you visually represent something that's entirely in a character's head, while still making it clear and funny for the audience? The cinematographer, Mark Irwin, and the directors handle this brilliantly by using simple but effective visual cues, primarily through lighting, framing, and casting choices. When Hal looks at someone and sees them as stunningly beautiful, the camera frames the scene with soft, flattering lighting, smooth focus, and slightly romantic angles that almost feel like a gentle caress. These shots have a warm, almost glowing quality, reinforcing the fantasy element of Hal's vision. The lens captures faces with a golden hue, highlighting smiles and expressions in a way that's visually inviting and easy to buy into, making the audience experience that wow moment alongside Hal. Then there's the stark visual contrast that comes when the hypnosis wears off, and we see the real versions of these characters. Here, the cinematography shifts gears, the lighting becomes cooler or harsher, the camera pulls back or frames the subject differently, and the composition often reveals imperfections or quirks that Hal initially missed. These scenes don't mock the characters but invite us to look more honestly and deeply, matching the movie's message that beauty isn't just skin deep. The framing here is often more naturalistic and less polished, encouraging viewers to drop their expectations of perfect beauty. It's a clever use of the camera as a storytelling tool, showing us visually what Hal's mind is doing, and how it evolves. One of the most engaging elements of the cinematography is the use of close-ups and facial framing. Whenever Hal experiences a moment of emotional change, whether it's confusion, embarrassment, or genuine affection, the camera tightens its focus, zeroing in on his eyes, his subtle reactions, or his smile. These intimate shots are like little windows into Hal's soul. They pull the audience in close so we don't just see what's happening on the surface. We feel it. This closeness makes Jack Black's performance resonate more deeply, showing us the nuances of a character who is learning to see the world in a completely new way. The camera work trusts the actors to carry the scene emotionally, giving them the room and time to express without interruption. Lighting in Shallow Hal does more than illuminate. It sets mood, tone, and even character states. Romantic moments are bathed in soft, warm light, like the glow you'd expect from a classic romantic comedy, making these scenes feel cozy and tender. Contrast this with scenes that reveal Hal's old shallow mindset. These often feature brighter, more clinical lighting or even stark fluorescent lights, especially in locations like gyms or offices, which emphasize superficiality and judgment. This lighting design cleverly underlines the film's themes by making the emotional subtext visible without a single word of dialogue. The audience is being guided, almost subconsciously, to feel the difference between genuine connection and shallow appearances. The framing choices also add layers to both comedy and storytelling. The directors and cinematographer use framing to emphasize comedic timing, capture background gags, and heighten emotional beats. For instance, in moments of awkwardness or embarrassment, like Hal's fumbling attempts at romance or Mauricio's wild antics, the camera lingers just long enough on reactions to let the humor land perfectly. Sometimes the frame exaggerates differences between characters, like emphasizing Mauricio's tiny stature next to Hal or highlighting the size contrasts that become part of the joke. These choices turn simple setups into memorable visual jokes that stick with you long after the scene ends. There's a lot to appreciate in how the camera moves throughout the film as well. Early in the movie, the shots can feel fairly static or straightforward, reflecting Hal's narrow, surface-level view of the world. But as his perspective shifts, the camera work becomes more fluid. Tracking shots, gentle zooms, and flowing movements help convey Hal's emotional opening and growing depth. This dynamic camera work isn't flashy. It's subtle but effective, visually supporting the character arc and making the film feel more alive and immersive. The way the camera follows Hal during his journey encourages the audience to stay close and invested. The locations also benefit from smart cinematography. Take the bustling club scenes, for example. Here, the camera is lively and energetic, matching the noise, chaos, and excitement. The handheld or slightly shaky camera movements give the scene a realistic, spontaneous feel, pulling the viewer into the party atmosphere. Contrast this with calmer, more composed shots on the boat or during intimate conversations, where the camera slows, the framing widens, and the lighting softens. This contrast between fast-paced and slow, between crowded and quiet spaces, enhances the emotional rhythm of the film, making the romantic moments feel even more precious. One of the most fun aspects of the cinematography is how it partners with the comedy. Comedy timing is often all about camera work, knowing when to hold a shot, when to cut, and how to frame a joke visually. In Shallow Hal, the camera knows when to capture a perfectly timed reaction, when to zoom in on a goofy expression, and when to reveal a silly detail in the background. These moments feel effortless but require precise timing and visual instinct. The camera acts like a comedic partner to the actors, elevating jokes from just lines of dialogue to fully realized comedic beats that hit with maximum effect. Beyond the comedy, the cinematography also subtly underscores the emotional stakes. When Hal confronts his own shallow tendencies or Rosemary faces her insecurities, the framing becomes more focused, more intimate, and the lighting softens to invite empathy. The camera doesn't just record these moments, it participates in them, creating a shared space where the audience can reflect on the themes of acceptance, love, and seeing beyond the surface. In short, the cinematography in Shallow Hal is a perfect example of how good camera work doesn't need to shout to be effective. It quietly shapes the audience's experience, guides their emotions, and enhances both the humor and heart of the film. By skillfully contrasting light and shadow, framing and movement, the cinematography brings Hal's unique vision to life, making sure we laugh, feel, and see the story in a way that's fun, engaging, and surprisingly moving. It's a visual storytelling dance that's as clever as it is subtle, and it's one of the many reasons this film sticks with you long after the credits roll. Diving deeper into the editing of Shallow Hal, it becomes clear that this film's rhythm is a carefully crafted heartbeat that keeps everything alive and kicking without ever letting the energy dip or the story feel choppy. Editors Christopher Greenbury and Michael Jablow play a crucial role in shaping how we experience the film, not just through what scenes are included, but how those scenes are stitched together, timed, and layered to balance comedy, romance, and emotional depth. From the very first moments, the editing establishes a lively pace that perfectly suits the movie's cheeky, fun vibe. The opening scenes zip along briskly, introducing us to Hal's shallow world where snap judgments and surface-level impressions reign supreme. The cuts between different scenarios, whether it's Hal sizing up women or Mauricio throwing out outrageous lines, are sharp and economical. There's no wasted time here. Every shot serves to build character or push the story forward. This fast pacing mirrors Hal's quick and often superficial mindset, making the audience feel the rush of his shallow observations and the dizzying whirl of his social life. As Hal's journey unfolds and the hypnosis changes the way he sees the world, the editing rhythm shifts too. When we enter the inner beauty world through Hal's eyes, the pace softens and scenes stretch out just a bit to let us soak in the emotional resonance. These moments of romance and sincerity are given breathing room, with longer takes and smoother transitions that invite the viewer to slow down and feel the tenderness between Hal and Rosemary. The editing becomes less about rapid-fire laughs and more about subtle emotional beats, allowing the audience to connect with the characters on a deeper level. One of the true strengths of the editing lies in its impeccable comedic timing. Comedy is notoriously difficult to get right because the difference between a joke landing perfectly or falling flat often comes down to fractions of a second in timing. Here, the editors expertly navigate this balance. For physical comedy, such as Mauricio's exaggerated gestures or Hal's awkward attempts at charm, the cuts land with precision, sometimes holding on a character's reaction a heartbeat longer to milk the humor, other times cutting away quickly to avoid overplaying a gag. This rhythm keeps the humor fresh and sharp without ever feeling overdone or repetitive. Transitions between scenes also contribute significantly to the film's smooth flow. Rather than abrupt cuts that jar the audience, the editors use visual or thematic cues to glide seamlessly from one scene to another. For example, a shot of Hal looking at a woman might dissolve into a fantasy sequence where she appears stunning, or a party scene might cut to a quieter moment that reflects Hal's inner thoughts. These transitions not only keep the story cohesive, but also subtly reinforce the film's themes of perception versus reality. This kind of editing craftsmanship helps the audience stay emotionally and mentally engaged without confusion or distraction. Montage sequences stand out as highlights of the film's editing creativity. These montages use a rapid succession of images, often set to upbeat music, to compress time and illustrate character growth or plot development efficiently and entertainingly. Whether it's Hal's changing romantic experiences or Mauricio's antics, these sequences pack a punch of energy and humor while advancing the story. The rhythm of these montages keeps the audience energized and adds variety to the film's pacing, breaking up dialogue-heavy scenes and keeping the momentum lively. A key factor in the film's pacing success is the editor's restraint. They know exactly when to let a scene run and when to cut it short. There's never a moment where Shallow Hal feels hurried or like it's trying to cram too much information into too little time. Each scene is given the space it needs to develop its emotional or comedic purpose, but not so much that the story stalls. This balance is crucial, especially in a film that juggles both heartfelt romance and broad comedy, as it ensures viewers remain engaged and emotionally invested throughout. In scenes packed with physical humor or fast-paced social interactions, like gym scenes or party moments, the editing manages to maintain clarity despite the chaos. Quick cuts paired with reaction shots keep the audience oriented and the jokes landing cleanly. This prevents the comedy from becoming overwhelming or confusing, allowing the humor to shine without sacrificing narrative coherence. The editors also do a subtle but important job in supporting the film's emotional arcs. When Hal faces moments of self-reflection or vulnerability, the pace slows, and the editing uses lingering shots and softer transitions to draw the audience into those feelings. These moments contrast nicely with the more frenetic comedy, giving the film a natural ebb and flow that feels satisfying rather than exhausting. Overall, the editing and pacing of Shallow Hal act like the film's nervous system, transmitting the energy, emotion, and humor through perfectly timed cuts and transitions. It's a dance of fast and slow, loud and quiet, silly and sincere, all choreographed to keep the audience hooked and emotionally connected. Without this expert editing, the film might lose its balance and fail to resonate as deeply as it does. Instead, the flow feels effortless, making watching Shallow Hal an enjoyable ride full of laughs, awkward moments, and surprisingly sweet connections. Diving deeper into the world of Shallow Hal's soundtrack and score reveals how much thought and care went into the film's auditory experience, shaping not only its atmosphere but also amplifying every twist, laugh, and tender moment without ever overwhelming the story. The music acts almost like a silent character itself, guiding viewers through Hal's comedic misadventures and emotional growth, blending humor and heart in perfect harmony. From the outset, the film bursts with the energy of its soundtrack, a lively collection of late 90s and early 2000s pop and rock tunes that immediately transport the audience into the zeitgeist of the era. This choice isn't just a nostalgic nod. It serves to set a playful, light-hearted tone that mirrors Hal's initially shallow, surface-focused worldview. The songs are infectious but carefully selected to never overshadow the narrative. They play during party scenes, montages, and transitions, providing a vibrant pulse that keeps the story feeling fresh and buoyant. This soundtrack injects a fun, youthful vibe that supports the film's comedic rhythm, inviting viewers to smile and tap their feet along with the unfolding antics. But beyond the well-chosen popular tracks lies the subtle brilliance of George S. Clinton's original score. Unlike bombastic or overly dramatic compositions, Clinton's music is nuanced, acting as an emotional thread weaving through the film's fabric. The score adapts fluidly to Hal's journey, reflecting his inner transformation with a delicate touch. Early on, the music leans toward playful, cheeky melodies that underline Hal's superficial judgments and light-hearted escapades. These whimsical motifs feel mischievous and buoyant, underscoring the film's comedic energy and Hal's carefree attitude. As the story progresses and Hal begins to see the world, and especially Rosemary, through new, deeper eyes, the score shifts accordingly. The playful tunes give way to warmer, more tender melodies, with recurring motifs that subtly reinforce the film's central theme of looking beyond appearances to find true beauty. These musical phrases aren't intrusive or saccharine. Instead, they offer a sincere, heartfelt undertone that gently pulls at the audience's emotions. Whenever this motif surfaces, whether in quiet, intimate moments or during emotional revelations, it acts like a sonic symbol of love and acceptance blossoming within Hal's character. Silence plays a surprisingly important role in the film's soundscape as well. In moments where Hal faces his own vulnerabilities or has internal realizations, the absence of music creates a powerful contrast to the otherwise lively soundtrack and score. These pauses allow the audience to focus fully on the dialogue and expressions, heightening the emotional weight without distractions. The strategic use of silence shows a sophisticated understanding that sometimes what's left unsaid and unheard can be just as impactful as a soaring melody. The soundtrack and score also excel in how well they complement the film's pacing and comedic timing. Music cues are expertly timed to enhance jokes, physical comedy, and awkward situations without overpowering the scene. For instance, Mauricio's over-the-top antics are often accompanied by quirky, bouncy tunes that emphasize his comic persona, making even the wildest moments feel cohesive and natural within the film's sound world. The rhythm of the music works hand in hand with the actors' performances and the editing, creating a comedic synergy that keeps the audience engaged and amused. Romantic scenes are treated with particular care in the soundtrack. Here, the music becomes softer, more melodic, and inviting, providing a warm sonic cushion that supports the tender connection growing between Hal and Rosemary. The score swells gently at just the right moments, enhancing feelings of hope, vulnerability, and love without tipping into melodrama. This balance helps maintain the film's overall lighthearted tone while deepening the emotional resonance, reminding viewers that Shallow Hal is as much about heart as it is about humor. Another fascinating aspect of the soundtrack is how it mirrors the duality in Hal's world, the clash between shallow perception and genuine inner beauty. This contrast is echoed in the music's shifts from energetic, flashy pop beats to more reflective, gentle instrumental pieces. The soundtrack effectively acts as a sonic map of Hal's transformation, guiding the audience through his changing perspective on a subconscious level. This thoughtful layering adds richness to the viewing experience, turning music into more than just background noise, but an integral part of the storytelling. The mixing and sound design ensure that music never overwhelms the dialogue or sound effects. The balance is carefully maintained so that the music supports the narrative, enhancing moods and emotions without distracting or pulling focus. This restraint is crucial in a film that relies heavily on comedic timing and character interaction. The soundtrack's presence feels natural and immersive, blending effortlessly into the film's overall soundscape. To sum up, the soundtrack and score of Shallow Hal are a masterclass in how music can elevate a film's storytelling. From catchy era-specific songs that set the tone to a thoughtfully composed score that underscores emotional depth and comedic beats, the music breathes life into the film. It's playful when it needs to be, tender when the story calls for it, and cleverly silent at just the right moments, creating a rich auditory tapestry that keeps viewers laughing, smiling, and feeling connected from start to finish. Digging even deeper into Shallow Hal, you start to realize the movie is much more than just a goofy rom-com. It's like a fun disguise for some surprisingly thoughtful themes and messages that sneak up on you while you're busy laughing. At its core, the film is an exploration of how we humans tend to judge too quickly based on appearances, and it cleverly flips that idea on its head to show how transformative seeing beyond the surface can be. Hal's whole journey isn't just about comedy or romance. It's a playful but insightful dive into the way society values physical beauty, the nature of true attraction, and what it really means to connect with another person. Right from the jump, the biggest theme hitting you is the critique of superficiality. Hal starts as this classic looks-only guy, the kind of person who sizes people up in seconds, checking off boxes based on looks alone. His whole worldview is shallow, hence the movie's title, and the hypnosis twist forces him to literally see people's inner beauty instead of their outer appearance. This idea isn't just a silly gimmick. It's a mirror held up to the audience and society at large, showing how easy it is to fall into shallow judgments, and how limiting that way of thinking really is. The film makes it clear, there's so much more to people than what meets the eye, and when we learn to look deeper, the world suddenly gets a lot richer and more interesting. Connected to that is the theme of acceptance, which runs through the movie like a warm undercurrent. But it's not just about accepting others, it's about accepting ourselves, flaws and all. Hal's transformation from shallow to open-hearted symbolizes this broader journey toward empathy and self-awareness. The relationship between Hal and Rosemary embodies this beautifully. It's not about fitting some societal ideal of beauty but about recognizing and loving the true person underneath. This message is threaded throughout the story with such sincerity that it feels genuine, never forced or preachy. It makes you root for Hal not just because he's funny, but because he's growing into a better, more compassionate human being. Another big idea bubbling under the surface is the tension between perception and reality. The movie cleverly plays with the concept that what we see is often a distorted version of the truth. Hal's hypnosis changes his visual reality, but it also nudges the audience to question their own perceptions. How often do we trust our first impressions? How much do we really know about the people around us? These questions add an intriguing layer to the comedy, making us think about the limits of our own vision, literally and figuratively, and encouraging us to develop a more empathetic and open-minded outlook. The film also takes a light but sharp jab at society's unrealistic beauty standards. Women especially are portrayed as victims of these harsh expectations, constantly judged and valued primarily for their looks. By highlighting characters who don't fit the conventional mold yet shine with personality and heart, Shallow Hal challenges these narrow ideals and celebrates diversity in appearance and character. The movie pushes back against the idea that beauty has to look a certain way, promoting a more inclusive and compassionate view of what makes someone truly attractive. This theme resonates beyond the love story, tapping into wider cultural conversations about body image, self-esteem, and acceptance. Transformation is another major theme. Not just Hal's outward change but his internal shift in mindset. The hypnosis is a fun narrative device, but it symbolizes a deeper truth about how changing the way we see the world can change our lives. It suggests that growth and personal evolution are possible if we're willing to challenge our own biases and open ourselves up to new perspectives. It's an optimistic and hopeful message wrapped in a hilarious story, reminding us that real change comes from within and can lead to more meaningful relationships and a richer life experience. Humor plays a big role in how these themes are delivered. Instead of feeling like a moral lecture, the movie uses comedy, awkward situations, and larger-than-life characters to soften the blow and make these ideas accessible. This clever mix means the audience isn't just hearing a message, they're experiencing it through laughter and empathy, which makes the themes stick in a more natural, enjoyable way. The film proves that deep ideas don't have to be heavy. They can be entertaining and thought-provoking all at once. Friendship and loyalty also get their moment in the spotlight, mostly through Mauricio, Hal's best friend. Mauricio might be the comic relief, but his steadfast support for Hal highlights the importance of genuine friendship. One where you accept someone unconditionally and help them grow. This theme adds emotional depth and shows that acceptance and love come in many forms, not just romantic ones. Finally, Shallow Hal quietly explores self-love and the importance of accepting yourself. Hal's journey isn't just about loving others for who they are, it's about learning to see and appreciate his own worth beyond shallow reflections. This subtle message encourages viewers to think about their own relationship with self-esteem and reminds us all that the journey to self-acceptance is as important as finding love outside ourselves. All these themes and messages are woven so naturally into the film's playful story and humorous tone that they never feel forced or preachy. Instead, they invite the audience to laugh, think, and maybe even reconsider how they see the people around them and themselves. Shallow Hal delivers a timeless, heartfelt exploration of beauty, love, and transformation wrapped in a package of fun and laughs, leaving a lasting impression that goes way beyond its silly premise. 10. Visual effects and CGI. When you sit down to watch Shallow Hal, you might not immediately think about visual effects or CGI as a major part of the film's appeal. After all, it's a romantic comedy that relies heavily on its humor, characters, and heartfelt story rather than action sequences or fantasy worlds. But once you start paying attention, you realize just how cleverly and effectively the visual effects work behind the scenes to bring the movie's unique premise to life. The challenge was no small feat. How do you convincingly show that the main character, Hal, sees people's inner beauty as their outward appearance, while the rest of the world sees their true, less glamorous selves? Pulling off that double-layered vision on screen required a smart blend of practical effects and digital wizardry, all done in a way that feels natural and smooth rather than distracting or gimmicky. One of the key effects in the film is the transformation of the female characters from their real appearance into the versions that Hal sees, their inner beauty. This isn't your typical Hollywood glow-up. The filmmakers had to create versions of characters that look stunning and idealized through Hal's eyes while also showing their true appearances, which are intentionally more average or unconventional. To achieve this, the movie leans heavily on practical effects like makeup, prosthetics, and costumes to build believable real looks that contrast sharply with the enhanced, glamorous versions. These practical elements add texture and realism to the transformations, making them feel tangible and convincing. Then comes the digital effects layer, which was used primarily to subtly polish and enhance these practical transformations, especially when the camera needed to seamlessly transition between the real person and their idealized Hal version. For an early 2000s film, the CGI is surprisingly restrained but effective, blending in with the practical effects in a way that keeps the audience immersed in the story rather than pulling them out with flashy or overdone visuals. The digital work doesn't scream effects, but quietly supports the film's premise, showing how perception can literally change what we see without feeling artificial or cartoonish. What's really interesting is how these visual effects aren't just about tricking the eye, they serve a larger storytelling purpose. The differences between how Hal sees people and how they truly appear are exaggerated enough to be funny and clear, but not so much that they feel unrealistic or out of place. This clever balance helps to reinforce the movie's themes about beauty, perception, and acceptance. Every transformation is a visual punchline but also a narrative device that makes the audience think about the disconnect between appearance and reality. It's a great example of how visual effects can do double duty, entertaining the audience while deepening the story's meaning. The film also uses visual effects in more subtle ways, such as when Hal's vision glitches or shifts, signaling a change in how he perceives the world. These moments use light digital touches, fading, blurring, or shifting focus, to gently cue the audience without overwhelming the scene. This subtlety helps maintain the naturalistic tone of the movie, ensuring that the comedy and romance stay front and center while still acknowledging the fantastic premise. Practical effects deserve special praise here because they bring a real-world texture that pure CGI sometimes lacks. The makeup artists and costume designers worked meticulously to create believable, before versions of the characters that didn't feel like caricatures or stereotypes, but genuine people with flaws and charm. This approach is important because it keeps the film grounded emotionally, allowing viewers to connect with the characters beyond their surface appearances. Another interesting angle is how the visual effects enhance the comedic impact. The contrast between Hal's perception and reality leads to a lot of funny moments, many of which rely on the audience clearly seeing the difference between the two. The transformations are exaggerated enough to deliver laughs, like when characters appear dramatically different from what everyone else sees. The visual effects team nailed this timing and tone perfectly, making sure the effects supported the humor rather than overshadowing it. Looking at it from today's perspective, with the vast leaps in CGI and visual effects, Shallow Hal's approach feels refreshingly practical and unpretentious. It doesn't rely on high-tech spectacle but on smart, carefully crafted effects that fit the story. This not only makes the film age well but also shows that good visual effects aren't about flashiness. They're about enhancing the story and characters in ways that feel organic. The seamless integration of practical and digital effects also highlights the teamwork behind the scenes. The makeup artists, the visual effects supervisors, the cinematographers, and the editors all working in harmony to maintain the film's unique visual style. This collaborative craftsmanship ensures that the effects don't just look good but serve the emotional and thematic core of the movie. In essence, the visual effects and CGI in Shallow Hal might fly under the radar for many viewers, but they are a vital ingredient in making the film's quirky concept work. They create a believable, immersive world where perception literally shapes reality, enhancing the humor, supporting the romance, and deepening the messages about beauty and acceptance. By combining practical makeup magic with subtle digital enhancements, the film achieves a visual style that is smart, funny, and emotionally engaging without ever feeling over the top or distracting. This thoughtful use of effects proves that sometimes less is more, and that the best visual effects are the ones that help you believe in the story without ever pulling you out of it. When it comes to set design and locations, Shallow Hal really knows how to build a world that feels both familiar and perfectly tuned to its unique blend of comedy and heart. The production design team crafted environments that don't just serve as background but actually help bring the story and characters to life in subtle, clever ways. From the moment the film starts, the settings feel authentic. Places you could imagine yourself in, or places you've been. Yet they carry a gentle, charming polish that keeps things visually engaging and supports the film's playful tone without ever feeling artificial or forced. Take Hal's apartment, for instance. It's not a glossy magazine-perfect bachelor pad, but a cozy, slightly cluttered space that feels lived in and real. The furniture, decor, and little personal touches, like a random stack of magazines or a quirky lamp, give you a glimpse into Hal's somewhat shallow, carefree personality before his hypnotic transformation. This space sets the stage for the film's opening tone, grounding us in Hal's world before the story takes off. It's familiar but not boring, and it perfectly reflects a young guy who hasn't given much thought to anything deeper than the surface. At least, until things start to change. Contrast that with Rosemary's environment, which feels more polished and warm but still authentic. Her home and personal spaces give off a vibe that's welcoming and sincere, reflecting her own inner beauty and kindness, which Hal eventually comes to see. The production design team subtly uses these settings to underline the differences between the characters' lives and personalities without spelling it out for the audience. It's a smart use of space that adds depth to their characters, letting the environment tell part of the story on its own. Public locations like gyms, cafes, and restaurants are another highlight. The gym scenes are particularly memorable because they feel like a real gym, full of equipment, grunting people, and the typical hustle and bustle you'd expect, but with a heightened comedic edge that matches the film's tone. The production designers paid attention to detail here, creating spaces that feel alive and believable, which helps the comedy land better because it's set against a backdrop that viewers can relate to. Whether it's the awkwardness of using a strange piece of gym equipment or the dynamics between characters working out, the setting becomes a character in its own right, shaping the humor and interactions. Restaurants and party locations are also thoughtfully designed. The restaurant where Hal and Rosemary share some of their key romantic moments feels cozy and intimate. The lighting is warm, the furniture is inviting, and the overall design encourages a sense of closeness and connection. These choices help the audience feel the chemistry between the characters in a very physical way, making those scenes more emotionally resonant. It's amazing how much the right set design can subtly influence how we perceive a relationship unfolding on screen, and Shallow Hal uses this to great effect. Another clever aspect is how the set design and locations support the film's underlying themes about perception and acceptance. The production design team, often in collaboration with the cinematographers, uses color palettes, lighting choices, and set details to visually differentiate between what Hal sees and what the world actually looks like. When Hal views someone's inner beauty, the environments often seem brighter, softer, or more inviting, reinforcing that warmer idealized perception. These visual cues work seamlessly with the story, helping the audience intuitively grasp the shifts in perspective without needing explicit explanations or dialogue. Props throughout the movie also deserve a mention because they add another layer of authenticity and humor. From quirky gym machines and everyday household items to personal accessories, the props feel well thought out and carefully chosen. They don't just fill space, they add texture to the scenes and sometimes even become part of the joke. For example, awkwardly oversized workout gear or odd food choices can highlight a character's quirks or enhance the comedic timing of a scene. These small touches show the production team's attention to detail and understanding of how environment and character interplay. The variety of locations also keeps the movie visually fresh and helps pace the story well. We move naturally from Hal's familiar haunts to new and sometimes unexpected places, paralleling his personal growth and expanding worldview. Outdoor scenes, like city streets and parks, provide a nice contrast to the more intimate indoor spaces. They open up the film visually and help anchor the story in a broader reality, reminding us that while the premise has a whimsical twist, the characters live in a relatable, tangible world. Even though Shallow Hal is not a fantasy or a sci-fi epic, the thoughtful use of sets and locations elevates the movie, making it feel polished and well-crafted without losing its down-to-earth charm. The environments invite the audience into the characters' lives and help create a space where humor and heart can flourish naturally. The balance between authenticity and stylized warmth in the set design makes the movie feel like a real place you want to be part of, even as it invites you to laugh at the absurdities of the premise. Ultimately, the set design and locations don't just hold the story, they actively enhance it. They help tell the story visually, deepen character understanding, and reinforce themes in subtle but meaningful ways. This kind of careful, nuanced production design is one of the reasons why Shallow Hal still feels engaging and enjoyable to watch years after its release. It's a reminder that sometimes the magic of a film comes not just from the script or performances, but from the very spaces the characters inhabit. Spaces that feel real, lived in, and perfectly tuned to the story being told. 12. Dialogue and script. In Shallow Hal, the dialogue and script are absolute engines driving the film's unique blend of humor, heart, and clever social commentary. What makes the writing so engaging is how it skillfully balances being sharp and witty with moments of genuine warmth and emotional insight. The conversations between characters don't just move the plot forward. They reveal who these people really are, their flaws, hopes, and growth, all while keeping the audience entertained with smart, well-timed humor. It's a tricky balancing act that the script pulls off with surprising finesse, especially given the somewhat fantastical premise of seeing inner beauty rather than outer appearances. At the start, Hal's dialogue immediately establishes his character as a typical superficial guy. His lines are loaded with sarcasm, quick judgments, and surface-level observations that feel very natural for someone who hasn't yet begun to question what truly matters. These initial exchanges are peppered with snappy one-liners and clever quips that serve both as comedy and as a way to set up his personality for the transformation ahead. The script doesn't just rely on jokes, though. It uses this humor to highlight how shallow and narrow Hal's worldview is, inviting the audience to laugh but also to reflect. As the film progresses, the writing smartly adapts to Hal's changing perspective. His language softens, and the dialogue begins to reveal more vulnerability and sincerity. This evolution is subtle but effective, with lines that show his growing appreciation for qualities beyond physical looks. The script's cleverness lies in how it keeps Hal relatable and funny while showing his character development through what he says and how he says it. Instead of simply preaching a message, the dialogue invites viewers to experience the change alongside Hal, making his journey feel authentic and heartfelt. Supporting characters get their share of fantastic writing too, each with distinctive voices that enrich the story. Rosemary's dialogue is a perfect example. She's not just a typical romantic lead but someone with wit, warmth, and a real personality. Her exchanges with Hal sparkle with chemistry, combining playful teasing with moments of tenderness. The script captures the push and pull of their relationship beautifully, using their words to explore themes of acceptance and genuine connection without ever feeling heavy-handed. The banter between them is both funny and touching, which keeps the audience emotionally invested while also enjoying the comedy. There are plenty of standout lines sprinkled throughout the film that have become memorable for their humor and insight. Some are sharp and snappy punchlines that land perfectly in the middle of a comedic scene, while others carry a subtle wisdom about love, beauty, and self-acceptance. These lines often function on multiple levels, making you laugh, but also nudging you to think a bit deeper. This dual-purpose writing is one of the reasons the script resonates with audiences long after the movie ends. One of the most amusing things about the dialogue is how it plays with the contrast between Hal's internal vision of people and what he actually says out loud. The film uses irony and misunderstanding brilliantly here. Hal's words sometimes clash hilariously with the reality everyone else sees, creating comedic tension and awkward yet funny moments. This gap between perception and expression is mined for a lot of laughs, with the script expertly timing misunderstandings, double meanings, and unexpected reactions to keep viewers amused and engaged. The quick back-and-forth exchanges between characters feel natural and spontaneous, full of interruptions, quips, and playful sarcasm that mimic real-life conversations. This rhythm makes the humor hit harder because it doesn't feel staged or forced. It feels like overhearing real people bantering. The script's conversational style adds a layer of authenticity to the film's relationships, making the characters feel like friends you might actually know rather than just actors delivering lines. At the same time, the script isn't afraid to slow down and allow more vulnerable, heartfelt moments to take center stage. When the story demands emotional weight, the dialogue shifts tone gracefully, becoming softer and more sincere without losing its relatability. These scenes feel earned, as if the characters are truly opening up and sharing real feelings. This ability to switch between humor and pathos smoothly is a hallmark of well-crafted writing, and it's a big reason why Shallow Hal manages to be both funny and moving. Even the minor characters have lines that add texture and flavor to the film. Their dialogue, while sometimes brief, adds to the overall tone, whether it's a quirky side comment, a humorous aside, or a small piece of wisdom. These smaller voices help create a rich world where everyone feels like they have a story, no matter how brief their screen time. This attention to detail in the writing helps prevent the story from feeling one-dimensional, adding layers that make the world feel lived in and authentic. The script's clever use of language also shines in how it addresses the film's themes without feeling preachy or obvious. The jokes, witty observations, and even the more serious lines all work together to challenge superficial judgments and encourage looking deeper. The dialogue manages to explore these ideas with a light touch, keeping things entertaining while still delivering meaningful commentary on beauty, love, and self-worth. Overall, the dialogue and script in Shallow Hal are much more than just funny lines tossed around for laughs. They're carefully crafted pieces of writing that carry the film's heart and humor, deepen the characters, and enrich the themes in a way that feels natural and engaging. The script invites you to laugh, think and feel, sometimes all at once, making the movie not just entertaining but genuinely memorable. It's a great example of how sharp writing and well-timed dialogue can elevate a film, giving it layers that keep audiences coming back again and again. 13. Genre execution. Shallow Hal is an interesting case when it comes to genre because it wears its romantic comedy label with pride, but also sneaks in elements that shake up the usual formula. At first glance, it looks like a straightforward rom-com, boy meets girl, misunderstandings, quirky side characters, and a happy ending. But dig a little deeper and you realize it's doing more than just ticking off genre checkboxes. The film takes the familiar conventions and flips them on their head by centering the entire story around the concept of inner beauty, which was quite a novel idea for a comedy in 2001. This fresh twist breathes new life into the genre, turning a simple love story into a fun exploration of what really matters in relationships and society's fixation on appearances. Romantic comedies tend to follow a predictable path. The meet-cute, the awkward moments, the obstacle or misunderstanding, and finally, the grand romantic gesture that wraps everything up. Shallow Hal doesn't completely ditch these beats, but it reshapes them with its unique premise. Instead of Hal falling for a stereotypically hot girl, the story revolves around him falling in love with someone based on her inner qualities, seen literally through his eyes. This subversion gives the movie a playful edge that feels like a breath of fresh air in a genre that can sometimes feel stale or overly formulaic. It's a clever way of mixing the familiar with the unexpected, which keeps viewers engaged and curious about what's coming next. The comedy in the film leans heavily on physical humor, situational gags, and visual contrasts that arise from the idea of seeing inner beauty instead of outer appearance. This creates hilarious moments where Hal's reactions don't match what the audience or other characters see, leading to awkward but funny scenarios. These comedic elements fit perfectly within the romantic comedy genre, but Shallow Hal uses them to do more than just get laughs. They're tools to explore and gently mock society's obsession with looks. The script balances silly, slapstick moments with sharp, witty dialogue, making sure the humor appeals on multiple levels. It's broad enough for a laugh-out-loud reaction but smart enough to keep you thinking. While the film is mostly light-hearted, it also dips its toes into drama, adding emotional depth that many rom-coms often shy away from. These moments are subtle, never bogging down the story or making it feel heavy, but they provide the perfect contrast to the comedy. When the film pauses to explore feelings of insecurity, self-acceptance, or the desire to be loved for who you truly are, it hits a genuine emotional chord. This ebb and flow between comedy and heartfelt moments is a hallmark of good genre execution. It keeps the film from becoming one note and gives the audience a richer experience. The pacing plays a big role in how well the genre works here. The movie moves briskly, jumping from joke to joke, scene to scene, without lingering too long or dragging. This snappy rhythm suits a rom-com perfectly, as it keeps the energy high and the audience engaged. Yet the film also knows when to slow down for the more tender, sincere moments between Hal and Rosemary. These pauses aren't just for show, they let the audience breathe, absorb the emotional stakes, and root even harder for the couple. This control over pacing is key to balancing humor and romance, two pillars of the genre. Supporting characters add even more layers to the genre mix. From Hal's quirky best friend to Rosemary's eccentric family members, these characters bring comic relief but also serve as mirrors or contrasts to the main themes. They're exaggerated just enough to be funny and memorable without becoming caricatures. Their interactions with the leads help build the story world and reinforce the messages about beauty, acceptance, and love. These side roles often provide the comedic punctuation that keeps the film lively and fun. What really makes Shallow Hal stand out in its genre execution is how it weaves social commentary into its humor and romance. It's rare for a romantic comedy to so directly question cultural standards of beauty and the shallow ways people judge others. But here, that message is delivered with such a light touch, through jokes, misunderstandings, and character growth, that it never feels preachy or heavy-handed. Instead, it invites the audience to laugh and think simultaneously, making the film more than just a feel-good romance. It becomes a playful critique of how we see each other and ourselves. Of course, the film doesn't shy away from some of the classic rom-com cliches, and you can spot moments like the transformation of the main character, the romantic tension filled with misunderstandings, and the ultimate everything works out perfectly ending. But these familiar elements are handled with enough charm and freshness that they don't feel tired or overdone. Instead, they give the audience a comforting structure to enjoy, while the unique premise and playful writing keep things interesting and unpredictable. In addition, Shallow Hal manages to balance different tones within the romantic comedy genre effectively. It can be goofy and silly one moment, heartfelt and sincere the next, and even cheeky and satirical elsewhere. This tonal variety keeps the audience on their toes and makes the film feel dynamic rather than one-dimensional. It's a fine example of how a movie can honor genre conventions while also pushing boundaries and adding its own distinctive voice. The film's genre execution is also enhanced by its visual storytelling, performances, and music, which all work together to underline the humor, romance, and underlying themes. The way these elements combine shows a confident grasp of the genre's demands and an ability to elevate them beyond the usual expectations. The result is a romantic comedy that feels both familiar and refreshingly original, with plenty of laughs, charm, and a meaningful message wrapped up in an entertaining package. In the end, Shallow Hal is more than just a romantic comedy. It's a playful, smart, and heartfelt twist on the genre that balances laughs and love with a thoughtful look at what really counts when it comes to beauty and relationships. It follows the genre's favorite patterns but does so with enough creativity and insight to make the experience fun, surprising, and memorable from start to finish. 14. Social and cultural commentary. At first glance, Shallow Hal might just seem like another goofy romantic comedy from the early 2000s. But if you take a closer look, you'll find that beneath its laughs and light-hearted moments, the film is making some pretty bold social and cultural observations. The movie cleverly uses its core premise, Hal only seeing the inner beauty of people thanks to a hypnotic suggestion, to challenge society's deep-rooted obsession with physical appearance and the way we judge others based almost entirely on looks. What's fascinating is how effortlessly these themes are woven into the fabric of the story, so the message doesn't feel like it's being forced on the audience or shoved in their faces. Instead, it feels like a natural part of the narrative, almost as if the film is whispering a gentle but important truth. Maybe what's on the surface isn't everything. Back when the movie came out in 2001, discussions around body image, self-esteem, and beauty standards weren't as widespread or nuanced as they are today. So in many ways, Shallow Hal was ahead of its time, exploring issues that would only become mainstream conversation years later. It uses humor and romance to disarm the viewer, allowing serious topics like body positivity and societal expectations to be examined through a lens that feels accessible and entertaining. Rather than preaching, it invites the audience to rethink their own perceptions in a playful way, making us laugh while simultaneously nudging us to question how we define beauty and worth. One of the standout aspects of the film's social commentary is how it humanizes people who might typically be marginalized or overlooked because of their appearance. Instead of portraying these characters as caricatures or punchlines, the movie gives them warmth, depth, and dignity. For example, Rosemary, who Hal falls in love with, is portrayed with genuine kindness and intelligence, not just as a figure of pity or comedy. This respectful depiction helps the audience empathize with her, making the film's message about inner beauty resonate on a much deeper emotional level. The film also pokes fun at the absurdity of society's shallow judgments in a way that's both funny and sharp. Scenes where Hal's eyes reveal one thing but the world around him sees another create humorous, sometimes awkward moments that cleverly highlight how ridiculous our fixation on appearances can be. This satirical edge adds a layer of social critique without ever becoming bitter or cynical. Instead, the humor invites viewers to laugh at themselves and the cultural norms we all participate in, making the film feel inclusive rather than judgmental. Another interesting dimension of the movie's cultural commentary is its subtle critique of how media and advertising constantly bombard us with unrealistic beauty ideals. Shallow Hal touches on this through visual jokes and character reactions that underline how commercial culture shapes our perceptions of attractiveness and worth. The film playfully exposes the ways in which these manufactured standards can warp our thinking and relationships, encouraging the audience to question the validity of these ideals. What makes the social commentary especially effective is its light touch. The film never becomes preachy or heavy-handed. Instead, it balances its message with a playful tone that keeps things upbeat and fun. This balance allows the movie to address sensitive and complex topics like body image, self-acceptance, and superficiality without alienating the audience. It's a tricky line to walk, but Shallow Hal manages it well, delivering its critique through warmth and humor. Additionally, the film explores how much people's self-esteem and identity can be wrapped up in their outward appearance, and how damaging this can be. It portrays characters who struggle with insecurity and self-worth, showing how societal pressures weigh on real people. This emotional honesty adds depth to the film and invites viewers to reflect on their own experiences or attitudes toward beauty and acceptance. The movie also tackles the cultural phenomenon of love at first sight, and how much of it is influenced by physical attraction. By turning this idea on its head, having Hal only see the inner beauty of those around him, the film questions whether love based on looks alone is shallow or genuine. It uses this reversal not just for comedic effect but as a meaningful commentary on romantic relationships and what truly matters in finding a connection. Finally, Shallow Hal manages to present all these social and cultural themes without sacrificing its entertainment value. The film's mix of slapstick humor, heartfelt moments, and sharp satire keeps the audience engaged and laughing, while subtly encouraging deeper thought about appearance, judgment, and acceptance. It's this blend of fun and meaningful insight that allows the commentary to come across as natural and compelling, rather than forced or preachy. In summary, Shallow Hal is much more than just a silly romantic comedy. Beneath its surface, it offers a surprisingly thoughtful and forward-looking exploration of social issues related to beauty, identity, and cultural expectations. It wraps these complex themes in humor and heart, making the film both entertaining and quietly impactful. The way it balances fun with meaningful commentary makes it stand out as a movie that invites laughter, reflection, and maybe even a little bit of self-examination, all at once. 15. Audience engagement. Shallow Hal has a unique way of drawing viewers in and making them feel like they're part of the journey from start to finish. Right away, the film sets a tone that is both playful and inviting, like it's sharing a fun secret with the audience. You're not just watching a romantic comedy unfold, you're invited to laugh along, cringe a little, and maybe even reflect on your own perceptions of beauty and love. This mix of humor and heart creates an emotional hook that keeps viewers glued to the screen, eager to see what happens next. The film is packed with moments that spark strong reactions, often swinging between belly laughs and heartfelt warmth. The comedic timing is sharp, with physical gags, awkward situations, and clever dialogue that deliver laughs consistently without feeling overdone or repetitive. Whether it's Hal's exaggerated expressions when seeing people differently or the quirky antics of the supporting cast, these funny moments invite a light-hearted atmosphere where viewers feel relaxed and entertained. But then, just when you think it's all jokes and slapstick, the movie pulls back the curtain to reveal tender scenes that touch on insecurities, self-worth, and the desire for genuine connection. This balance of comedy and emotion means the audience isn't just laughing, they're also feeling, which deepens their engagement with the story. One of the film's strengths in audience engagement is its ability to subvert expectations. Many might tune in expecting a predictable romantic comedy about superficial attraction, but Shallow Hal quickly shifts gears by exploring deeper issues like body image and the true meaning of beauty. This surprise factor keeps viewers on their toes, encouraging them to think beyond the surface-level humor. It sparks conversations and reflections about how society values appearances and how often those values miss what really matters in people. This kind of engagement goes beyond the usual watch-and-forget experience, inviting the audience to carry the film's themes with them and perhaps see the world a little differently. The characters play a huge role in keeping the audience invested. Hal's transformation, from a man obsessed with outward appearances to someone who learns to appreciate inner beauty, is both amusing and relatable. You find yourself laughing at his initial shallow perspective, but also cheering him on as he grows emotionally and learns important life lessons. The supporting characters add texture and richness, making the world feel lived in and real. Their interactions, quirks, and struggles create multiple points of connection for the audience, so there's always something to root for or relate to. This ensemble dynamic means the film isn't just about one person's journey. It's about how different people come together and change through understanding and acceptance. The emotional moments are memorable and impactful. Scenes that show vulnerability, moments of self-doubt, or breakthroughs in understanding tap into universal feelings that resonate with many viewers. When Hal begins to truly see people for who they are, beyond looks, the film invites the audience to share in that realization and feel a sense of warmth and hope. These emotional beats linger, adding depth to what could have been a straightforward comedy and making the movie more rewarding to watch. What also makes Shallow Hal stand out in terms of engagement is its replay value. On the surface, it's an easy-to-watch funny movie, but it also has layers that you might notice only after watching a few times. Whether it's subtle jokes, character nuances, or the way the themes unfold, there's enough richness to encourage repeat viewings. This means the film doesn't just entertain once. It rewards viewers who come back with new insights and laughs, making it a favorite for many. The film's wide appeal also helps maintain audience engagement. It doesn't pigeonhole itself into one narrow type of comedy or romance. Instead, it blends slapstick humor, romantic moments, and thoughtful commentary in a way that appeals to different tastes. Whether you love silly jokes, heartfelt love stories, or films that make you think, there's something here that grabs your attention. This broad accessibility helps it connect with a diverse audience, keeping the energy lively throughout the film. The vulnerability portrayed on screen is another powerful tool for audience connection. The characters' struggles with self-image and societal pressures feel genuine, which makes their emotional journeys believable and relatable. Seeing Hal's growth and his changing perspective on love and beauty invites viewers to reflect on their own experiences. This emotional honesty adds a human touch that makes the story stick with you long after watching. Ultimately, Shallow Hal is a film that knows how to entertain while also stirring real feelings and thoughts. It keeps the audience laughing, engages them emotionally, and encourages reflection, all at the same time. This mix of humor, heart, and insight creates a viewing experience that's lively, memorable, and deeply satisfying. It's no surprise that people come back to it, discuss it with friends, and remember it as more than just a simple romantic comedy. The film's ability to blend these elements seamlessly is what makes its connection with the audience so strong and enduring. 16. Comparisons to similar films. When you start placing Shallow Hal alongside other romantic comedies of its time, Or even comparing it to the bigger landscape of rom-coms, it's like finding a movie that's part classic formula but also a little offbeat in a way that makes it stand out. Sure, it follows some of the well-worn paths of the genre. Boy meets girl, funny misunderstandings, awkward yet charming moments, and ultimately, love triumphs. But what really sets Shallow Hal apart is how it uses this familiar structure to explore something a bit deeper and more unusual. How society's obsession with physical appearance shapes our relationships and perceptions. If you think about other romantic comedies that were popular around the late 90s and early 2000s, movies like Notting Hill, 10 Things I Hate About You, or even How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, they mostly focus on witty banter, clever plot twists, and the usual romantic misadventures. Shallow Hal taps into those same comedic beats but injects an extra dose of social commentary about body image that many rom-coms either skim over or completely ignore. This gives the film an intriguing blend of light-hearted fun and a message that invites you to reflect on something meaningful beneath the laughs. Looking at Jack Black's career around this time, Shallow Hal fits nicely with his style of playing lovable, goofy characters who often find themselves in awkward, hilarious situations. Think of films like High Fidelity or Saving Silverman. However, Shallow Hal gives him a somewhat deeper emotional arc. Instead of just being the funny sidekick or the guy who messes up, Jack Black's character actually experiences a profound transformation that pushes him to rethink his values and perceptions, making the comedy feel more grounded and heartfelt than some of his other roles. From a directorial perspective, Joe Roth isn't usually known for revolutionary filmmaking, but in Shallow Hal he manages to strike a good balance between goofy humor and genuine emotional moments. This film shares some tonal similarities with other comedy-romance hybrids of the era like 50 First Dates or Liar Liar, where the laughs are balanced with an underlying message or emotional growth. What makes Shallow Hal unique among these is its inventive premise, using hypnosis as a fantastical device to literally change how the protagonist sees people, which adds a whimsical flavor that sets it apart from more straightforward romantic comedies. If you compare Shallow Hal to movies that address themes of body image and self-esteem, such as The Duff or Mean Girls, the tone is quite different. Those films often tackle these issues with a heavier, more dramatic touch, whereas Shallow Hal chooses to approach them with humor and fantasy. The hypnosis angle introduces a kind of magical realism that makes the exploration of beauty and acceptance feel more playful and imaginative, which is a refreshing departure from the sometimes heavy-handed way these themes are handled elsewhere. When you look at the rom-com genre as a whole, Shallow Hal stands out because it combines the classic elements of romance and comedy with a clever critique of societal norms. Many romantic comedies focus on external obstacles, like bad timing or personality clashes, that keep the leads apart. Here, the main obstacle is internal: Hal's shallow perception and his journey to seeing beyond it. This internal conflict adds a layer of complexity that makes the movie feel richer and more nuanced than your average love story. That said, the film does lean into some familiar rom-com tropes: the grand romantic gestures, the misunderstandings, and the feel-good resolution. But what keeps it from feeling stale is the way the story unfolds through Hal's changed perspective, offering a fresh lens on romance and attraction. This twist keeps the audience engaged because it's not just about winning love, but about learning to value people for who they truly are. When compared to other films dealing with themes of self-acceptance and body positivity, Shallow Hal takes a lighter, comedic approach rather than going for heavy drama. This makes its message more accessible and less preachy, inviting viewers to laugh and think at the same time. It walks a fine line between humor and sensitivity, which can be tough to pull off, but the film generally manages to keep the tone respectful while still being funny. All in all, Shallow Hal carves out a unique space in the rom-com genre by blending a traditional love story with an inventive, playful exploration of how appearance affects perception. It mixes fantasy and reality, comedy and heartfelt emotion, making it a memorable and distinctive film that stands apart from its peers. It offers something new and thoughtful without abandoning the charm and humor that fans expect, which is why it continues to be remembered and talked about years after its release. 17. Symbolism and metaphors. Shallow Hal isn't just a light-hearted romantic comedy. It's packed with clever symbolism and metaphors that sneak in deeper meaning while keeping the tone fun and approachable. The most obvious symbol is hypnosis itself, which isn't just a quirky plot device but serves as a powerful metaphor for perception and judgment. When Hal is hypnotized to see only people's inner beauty, it's like the film is holding up a mirror to society, asking us to question how much of what we see is influenced by shallow standards versus true character. Hypnosis here symbolizes the mental filters we all have. Filters that shape how we perceive others and ourselves, sometimes in misleading ways. The film plays brilliantly with the contrast between appearance and reality, using visual cues to hammer home its theme that beauty is more than skin deep. When Hal looks at people and sees them transformed into idealized versions, thin, glamorous, glowing, those images are not what others actually see, but they reveal how perception can warp reality. This dual imagery, the real versus the seen, becomes a recurring motif that constantly reminds the audience that looks can be deceiving. It's a visual metaphor for how our judgments can be blind, influenced by societal biases or personal prejudices. Color symbolism is another subtle but effective layer. Before the hypnosis, the movie's color palette is somewhat muted, dull, or typical, reflecting Hal's narrow, superficial worldview. Once he starts seeing people's inner beauty, colors become warmer, richer, and more vibrant. This shift visually represents Hal's emotional and mental awakening. It's as if his world literally brightens when he stops focusing on the surface and starts appreciating deeper qualities. This change in color tone cleverly parallels the film's message of transformation, growth, and enlightenment. Mirrors and reflections pop up throughout the movie as symbolic elements, too. Mirrors have long been associated with self-awareness and truth, and in Shallow Hal, they serve as subtle reminders for Hal, and the audience, to look beyond the surface. When Hal catches glimpses of himself or others in mirrors, it's a nudge to question not just external beauty but also inner truths. These moments invite viewers to reflect on their own biases and self-perceptions, making the theme more personal and relatable. Food and eating scenes add another playful metaphor. Mauricio, Hal's best friend, loves his food and isn't afraid to indulge. In many Hollywood films, bigger body sizes are stigmatized, but here Mauricio's joy around food symbolizes comfort, self-acceptance, and living life on your own terms. This metaphor quietly pushes back against societal pressures and beauty standards, celebrating body positivity and authentic happiness. Food becomes a symbol of pleasure and acceptance rather than guilt or shame, which aligns perfectly with the film's message of embracing who you are. The characters' names and traits also carry metaphorical weight. Rosemary, for example, is not just a romantic interest but symbolically connected to remembrance and love. The herb rosemary traditionally symbolizes memory and fidelity. Her presence in Hal's life encourages him to remember what really matters, beyond superficial looks. Mauricio's jovial nature and acceptance symbolize friendship and the importance of seeing people for who they really are, not just how they appear. Even the use of hypnosis ties into a broader metaphor about societal influence and mental conditioning. We're hypnotized by cultural ideals of beauty and worth, just as Hal is literally hypnotized to see differently. The film is cleverly asking us to snap out of this trance and reevaluate our own judgments and biases. This metaphor works on many levels, making the story both funny and thought-provoking. The visual contrast between characters also works as metaphorical storytelling. Characters who fit conventional beauty standards but lack kindness or depth are often framed in sharp, flashy lighting and glamorous settings, highlighting their superficiality. Meanwhile, those who have warmth and goodness but don't fit society's ideal image are shown through Hal's altered perception in softer, glowing tones. This visual language reinforces the idea that true beauty is found in character and heart, not just in appearances. The film also uses physical transformations as metaphors for inner change. Hal's journey from being shallow to appreciating people's inner qualities is mirrored visually in how he sees the world. This symbolic transformation isn't just about physical looks, it's about emotional and moral growth, about breaking free from narrow thinking to a more compassionate and open mindset. All these symbolic elements, the hypnosis, the contrasting visuals, the color shifts, mirrors, food, character names, and physical transformations, work together to enrich the storytelling. They add layers of meaning beneath the surface laughs and romantic moments, making Shallow Hal more than just a comedy. It becomes a playful but insightful meditation on perception, acceptance, and what it truly means to see and love someone for who they are inside. This thoughtful use of symbolism invites the audience to look past appearances and reconsider their own ideas about beauty, worth, and love in a world obsessed with the outer shell. 18. Franchise or historical context. While Shallow Hal isn't part of a franchise or a sequel, it holds a unique place in the early 2000s cinematic landscape, serving as both a product of its time and a subtle challenger to some cultural norms around beauty and romance. To really understand its context, you have to zoom out and look at where romantic comedies and mainstream Hollywood were headed during that era. The late 90s and early 2000s saw a surge of rom-coms that combined quirky humor with heartfelt storytelling, and Shallow Hal fits neatly into that mold but with a distinct twist. It's a comedy that tackles the very tricky, often uncomfortable topic of appearance and societal standards of attractiveness. During that period, most rom-coms focused on finding the one, dating mishaps, and witty banter. But few dared to examine the role of physical appearance in how people fall in love or are judged. Shallow Hal brought that conversation front and center by using hypnosis as a plot device to force the protagonist, and the audience, to rethink what it means to be beautiful. In that sense, it was a little ahead of its time, predating the massive body positivity and diversity movements that would gain momentum in the decades to follow. It's as if Shallow Hal planted a seed in mainstream pop culture, encouraging people to look beyond surface-level judgments even if it did so with a heavy dose of comedy and slapstick. Looking at it through the lens of the Farrelly brothers' filmography, this movie is very much their signature style distilled. A blend of crude, often outrageous humor mixed with surprisingly sweet and socially aware themes. The Farrelly brothers were known for pushing boundaries and mixing slapstick with messages about acceptance and kindness, and Shallow Hal embodies that perfectly. Compared to their earlier hits like Dumb and Dumber or There's Something About Mary, this film is a bit more focused on emotional growth and social commentary, even if it still has that irreverent, goofy energy. In many ways, it's a bridge between their broad comedic style and more thoughtful, character-driven stories. Historically speaking, Shallow Hal also reflects the cultural tensions of its time. The early 2000s were a pre-social media era where beauty standards were dominated by magazines, television, and movies, often portraying very narrow ideals of attractiveness. Shallow Hal pokes fun at this by exaggerating these ideals, making the normal appearance seem less important and highlighting inner beauty as something transformational. Though it's wrapped in humor and occasional silliness, the film is engaging with important conversations about how society treats weight, looks, and self-worth, topics that are still hotly debated today. It's like a time capsule showing how Hollywood began grappling with these ideas, even if imperfectly. The use of hypnosis in the film also ties into a larger historical and cinematic tradition of transformation stories, where characters see the world differently or change fundamentally because of some external influence. This idea is as old as storytelling itself, seen in everything from fairy tales to psychological thrillers. What Shallow Hal does is cleverly twist this trope into a romantic comedy context, using it not to scare or mystify but to enlighten and entertain. It's a fresh take on the theme of perception versus reality, giving audiences both laughs and something to think about. Even without a franchise, the film's cultural footprint is notable. Over the years, Shallow Hal has become a reference point whenever films or discussions about body image and beauty standards pop up. Its premise and message continue to resonate, making it a touchstone in the genre of romantic comedies that dare to be more than just feel-good fluff. It's frequently brought up in conversations about how Hollywood handles weight and attractiveness, sometimes praised and sometimes critiqued, which shows how deeply it touched on a sensitive cultural topic. So, although Shallow Hal doesn't extend into a series of films and isn't a historical reenactment, its importance lies in how it fits into the cultural and cinematic context of the early 21st century. It captures a moment when romantic comedies were evolving to include more socially conscious themes, balancing laughs with a genuine message about looking beyond the surface. In doing so, it helps set the stage for more inclusive storytelling in mainstream cinema. It's a film that wears its humor on its sleeve but carries a heartbeat beneath, a quirky yet meaningful snapshot of its time, perfectly representative of the Farrelly brothers' unique style and a film that still invites us to rethink what beauty really means. 19. Budget and box office. Let's dive deeper into the financial side of Shallow Hal, because understanding how much it cost to make versus how much it earned tells a story all on its own. Almost like the behind-the-scenes drama of Hollywood that can be just as captivating as what's on screen. The movie was made with a moderate budget, hovering around the $40 million mark, which, for a romantic comedy in the early 2000s, was a pretty decent investment. It wasn't a shoestring indie flick nor was it a Hollywood extravaganza packed with CGI-heavy sequences and expensive set pieces. Instead, the money went towards a solid cast, some clever special effects to pull off the hypnosis and inner beauty visualizations, and the polished production values that fans of the Farrelly brothers had come to expect. The budget was a sweet spot, enough to make the film look professional and visually appealing without overspending on things that didn't serve the story. This budget-to-production quality balance shows clearly on screen. While you won't see massive action scenes or jaw-dropping CGI, the visual effects are charming and effective for their purpose. The magic trick of showing how Hal sees people differently after hypnosis relies on a mix of practical effects and some neat visual tweaks that, though modest in scale, do the job convincingly. The sets and locations feel grounded and believable, not flashy, which fits perfectly with the film's tone. More about heart and humor than spectacle. The production team clearly knew where to spend their money wisely, enhancing the story rather than distracting from it. When Shallow Hal hit theaters in 2001, it did reasonably well at the box office, though it wasn't an instant blockbuster or record breaker. It managed to pull in over $140 million worldwide, which, when stacked against its $40 million budget, marked it as a financial success. The movie earned back its cost multiple times over, which is what studios love to see. However, compared to some of the mega hits of that era, it wasn't a cultural phenomenon right out of the gate. It was more of a sleeper hit that found its audience gradually, helped by word-of-mouth buzz and the draw of Jack Black's quirky comedic charm and Gwyneth Paltrow's star power. The Farrelly brothers' name attached to the project also gave it a built-in fan base, as audiences were curious to see how their unique brand of humor would tackle such a delicate topic. Marketing played a fascinating role in how Shallow Hal performed financially. The promotional campaign leaned into the movie's unique hook, the hypnosis effect that makes Hal see the inner beauty of people, often resulting in humorous and heartwarming moments. Trailers, posters, and ads emphasized the blend of comedy and romance, making it clear that this wasn't just another romantic comedy but one with a quirky, thoughtful twist. Still, marketing had to tread carefully because the film's subject matter, dealing with body image and attractiveness, could have alienated some viewers or sparked controversy. The campaign smartly highlighted the film's positive message and comedic heart, inviting viewers to expect laughs but also a story that made them think. This approach helped draw in a broad audience but may have also limited the film's reach to those who prefer more traditional rom-com fare. Audience reception was mixed, which had a direct impact on the film's box office trajectory. Critics and viewers were split. Some appreciated the fresh take on love and beauty, enjoying the film's humor and heart, while others found the jokes uneven or felt the film's message was a bit clumsy or outdated. This polarized reaction meant that Shallow Hal didn't become a breakout smash with mass appeal during its theatrical run, but instead carved out a niche audience that appreciated its charm and quirky perspective. Over time, the film's reputation improved as it gained a cult following, especially on home video and streaming platforms where viewers could engage with it on their own terms, free from the pressure of opening weekend hype. The film's financial performance also benefited from Jack Black's rising star power and Gwyneth Paltrow's established appeal. Their chemistry and comedic timing made the movie entertaining enough to encourage repeat viewings, and their presence was a major draw for marketing efforts. Additionally, the Farrelly brothers' track record for mixing raunchy humor with heart helped maintain interest among comedy fans looking for something both funny and touching. So when you look at the full picture, Shallow Hal's budget was a smart, calculated investment that paid off handsomely. The film's moderate budget allowed for polished production values and effective visual effects without unnecessary extravagance. Its box office performance was solid, turning a comfortable profit and establishing the movie as a memorable entry in the early 2000s romantic comedy scene. Marketing efforts successfully positioned the film as a unique blend of comedy and meaningful commentary, attracting an audience that appreciated both laughs and a thoughtful message. The mixed audience reception meant it didn't skyrocket to instant classic status but rather grew in appreciation over time, becoming a beloved cult favorite for many who revisit it for its heart and humor. All in all, the financial tale of Shallow Hal is a story of smart budgeting, effective marketing, and enduring appeal that helped secure its place in the comedy romance landscape of its era. 20. Where to watch. So you're all set to jump into the world of Shallow Hal, ready to enjoy its quirky humor and heartfelt moments. But the question remains, where exactly can you watch this early 2000s gem today? The great news is, despite its age, Shallow Hal is surprisingly accessible across a variety of viewing options. While it may no longer be showing in theaters as a regular feature, it has found a comfortable second life on streaming platforms, digital rental services, and physical media shelves, meaning you have plenty of ways to catch it, no matter your viewing preference. Let's dive into the best ways to experience this charming romantic comedy and how to get the most out of your watch. Starting with theaters, Shallow Hal is a bit of a nostalgia pick now, so it's not part of the current cinema lineup. Most multiplexes aren't showing it anymore, but if you're craving the big screen experience, keep an eye out for special film festivals, classic movie nights, or independent theater events. Sometimes local cinemas host throwback screenings featuring cult favorites or early 2000s comedies, so if you catch one, grabbing a ticket to watch Shallow Hal in a packed theater filled with fans can be a surprisingly delightful event. The shared laughter in a room full of people reacting to Hal's hypnosis hijinks and heartfelt moments adds a whole new energy to the experience that home viewing just can't replicate. However, for most viewers, streaming services will be the easiest and quickest route to watch Shallow Hal. Depending on your location and the deals those platforms have in place, the movie often appears on popular services such as Hulu, Peacock, or even Netflix at times. Streaming it via subscription services is ideal if you have a membership because it lets you watch the movie on demand without additional cost. But keep in mind, streaming libraries rotate their offerings regularly, so availability can come and go. To make sure you don't miss it, it's worth checking your favorite platforms or using apps that notify you when movies you want become available. If streaming isn't an option, or if you want guaranteed access anytime, digital rentals and purchases are a solid bet. Online stores like Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, Google Play Movies, YouTube Movies, and Vudu frequently have Shallow Hal available to rent or buy. Renting usually means you pay a small fee and get a 48-hour window to watch the movie, which works great for a spontaneous movie night or casual viewing. Purchasing a digital copy means you own the movie permanently in your library and can rewatch it as often as you like. Perfect for fans who want to keep Hal's charming story on hand for those feel-good moments or sharing it with friends later. The digital versions typically come in HD, and some platforms even offer 4K where supported, making the hypnosis effects and scenic shots crisp and visually enjoyable. For those who love the tactile joy of physical media, Shallow Hal is also widely available on DVD and Blu-ray. Collectors and movie buffs often prefer owning a physical copy because it often comes with extra features. Think behind-the-scenes footage, deleted scenes, cast interviews, and director commentary that give you a peek into how the movie was made and deepen your appreciation for it. Plus, Blu-ray tends to deliver superior picture and sound quality compared to many streaming versions, which makes a big difference when watching a comedy with visual effects and subtle emotional nuances. Physical copies also mean you don't have to worry about internet connections or streaming licenses. Pop the disc in whenever you want, and the movie's ready to roll. Now, let's talk about the best viewing experience. Shallow Hal benefits from being watched on a decent-sized screen with good sound. The hypnosis sequences, where Hal's perspective magically changes, rely on clear visuals to maximize their comedic and emotional impact. Watching on a crisp HD TV, a projector, or a well-calibrated home theater system brings out the vibrant colors, facial expressions, and visual gags that might get lost on smaller screens or low-quality setups. Sound quality matters too, because the witty dialogue, timing of jokes, and musical score all come together to create the movie's unique mood. So whether you're setting up a solo movie night or gathering friends and family, a cozy atmosphere with good audio and video gear helps you soak in every laugh and heartfelt moment. Speaking of company, Shallow Hal is a fantastic movie to watch with others. Its blend of humor and heart makes it a perfect pick for group viewings where you can share laughs, react together to the hypnotic twists, and spark conversations about beauty, acceptance, and love. The film's light tone means it's accessible to a wide audience, making it ideal for casual movie nights, date nights, or even family gatherings where everyone can enjoy Hal's amusing adventure and Gwyneth Paltrow's charming performance. If you prefer a more flexible approach, streaming on mobile devices or tablets lets you watch Shallow Hal on the go. Whether you're traveling, waiting in line, or just lounging somewhere without a TV, having the movie in your pocket means the fun never has to stop. Just remember that smaller screens may diminish some of the visual impact, but the humor and story still shine through no matter where you watch. In conclusion, no matter how or where you choose to watch Shallow Hal, the movie's quirky charm, memorable performances, and heartwarming themes remain just as enjoyable today as when it first hit theaters. Whether streaming, renting, buying digital, snagging a physical copy, or catching a rare theatrical screening, the film is ready and waiting to deliver laughs, warmth, and a little food for thought. So grab your favorite snacks, settle into your comfy spot, and get ready for a viewing experience that's equal parts hilarious and heartfelt, proving that sometimes seeing the world and love through a different lens is exactly what we all need.